Hello class. Today we will talk about what is an academic argument. We will discuss its forms and functions as well as its purposes and the differences between an academic argument and a 5-paragraph report. First, let's start with what is an academic argument. An academic argument is the most common writing assignment in the university setting. Nearly every class you take at a university requires this kind of paper to be written. There are many kinds of arguments for many purposes, but they all have three things in common. First, they provide two or more positions on a debatable topic. Second, they compare the evidence for each position. Third, using logic and a variety types of evidence, they show one position to be stronger than the other position. Subjects for an academic argument depend on the class. A field-specific class will often prescribe a subject to the class to write on. A writing class, however, may have much more flexibility. A few examples might be the effects of artificial intelligence on the economy, minority rights, or sexism. Subjects will be related to the class's field of study in most cases. Some open-ended classes, like writing classes, may have a wide range of subjects. Various subjects often have their own set of expectations, forms, and rules. This is often referred to as genre. Topics for academic arguments depend heavily on the subject. Sometimes the teacher will leave the topic very flexible. Other times, they will give the students a direct question. A few examples of subjects and topics might look like this. If the subject is the effects of artificial intelligence on the economy, the topic might be, will artificial intelligence be beneficial to the economy in the next 5 years? If the subject is minority rights, the topic might be, has the NAACP helped or hindered race relations in America? If the subject is sexism, the topic might be, are Asian gender roles and division of labor sexist? Teachers will often give detailed writing prompts that explain the parameters of the argument. This will often include a very specific topic question or list of questions to choose from. These topics will always be debatable topics. The purpose of an academic argument comes down to two very general types: enacting a change in the reader and resisting a change in the reader. The difference between them comes down to if the writer agrees or disagrees with the intended reader of the article. There are, of course, many subcategories of purposes, but they can all fit into these two categories. As you might have guessed, different strategies are useful for each category. There will be a lot of detailed information about this in a later lecture. The audience of an academic argument varies widely depending on the subject, topic, and purpose. Every audience will have specific ways of thinking, communicating, and a general level of formality. Some examples include the scientific community. They have strong logic, they use data and technical terms, and have a high level of formality. New or young parents are easily swayed by emotion and empathy. They use layman's terms and are generally informal. Teens view things in terms of social status and identity. They use slang frequently and generally are opposed to formality. Knowing how your audience thinks, communicates, and behaves can improve how well the information of your argument is accepted by your target audience. As you might have guessed, different strategies are useful for each audience. There will be a lot of detailed information about this in a later lecture. The academic argument is similar to the 5-paragraph report in that it has the same basic 3 parts of the formula, but there are several key differences in each of the 3 sections. The introduction has 1 or more paragraphs with basic information about the subject and topic, and it has a clearly stated position on the topic. The body has many paragraphs that give detailed information about the topic and competing positions. The body typically has 3 sections. The position provides the author's view on the topic with evidence and logic behind why the author holds that position. The counterposition provides at least one alternative view on the topic with the evidence and logic behind why another author holds that position. The refutation provides evidence and logic that show why the alternative view is not as valid as the position of the author's argument. The conclusion has one or more paragraphs that summarize the argument in the body and restates the author's position on the topic. The introduction to the academic argument often takes many different forms depending on the subject and the audience. However, a good argument introduction will fulfill 7 basic roles. Often, these are divided into 2 paragraphs. In the first paragraph, the argument should provide background information on the subject, introduce the topic, target the target audience, and pique the interest of the readers. The second paragraph should provide a summary of the counterposition, a summary of your reasoning on your position, and give a clear statement of your position on the topic. This is often called the thesis statement. A detailed lecture on introductions and their relationships with the other parts of the paper will be given in a later lecture. The body. In an academic argument, the body has 3 major sections. Depending on the purpose, audience, subject, topic, and position, these 3 sections may be reordered or combined in many different ways. They are as follows. Position. In this section, you explain what is your position on the topic and provide your side of the argument with at least 3 key points. Generally, this is at least 3 short paragraphs long, 1 paragraph for each key point in your argument. Evidence of some form should be provided for each key point. The counterposition. This is where you explain the alternative position or positions. You don't have to give as much detail as your position, but you should still provide 3 key points. Most counterposition sections are 1 paragraph for each alternative position on the topic provided in the argument. The refutation. In this section, you show evidence and logic that strips away the validity or credibility of the counterposition's logic. You will need to provide evidence for each of the key points that you discredit, and the evidence you provide should be more powerful or more convincing for your target audience than the counterposition's evidence. A detailed lecture on these 3 sections of an argument and their relationship to the other parts of the paper will be given later in this course. The conclusion of an academic argument can take many different forms, depending on the subject, audience, and style of argument. In general, conclusions need to perform the following 6 functions to be effective. First, they need to acknowledge your counter-argument. Second, they need to summarize your refutation of the counter-argument. Third, they need to summarize the logic of your argument. Fourth, they should clearly restate your position on the topic. Fifth, they should make a final appeal to your audience. And sixth, they should address your paper's purpose. A detailed lecture on conclusions and their relationship to other parts of the paper will be given later in this course. Evidence in an academic argument is treated generally in a formal way, using a strict set of citation rules. Every key idea in your position and refutation require evidence of some kind, and it is best if you can provide a source of information for the counter-argument as well. Here is a quick list of the types of evidence that are generally used in an academic argument. The narrative, a story that demonstrates your point. Narratives have the lowest form of credibility, But if you establish a strong connection with your audience, these can be quite powerful evidence to use. Tertiary sources. These are articles with difficult to verify information. Quoting news and using current events is often not a good idea for providing your main pieces of evidence. In an academic argument, sources of information with verifiable information are the best. Secondary sources. Articles with verifiable sources of information. These are the types of sources of information that are most often used, especially for undergraduate university level writing. Primary sources. These are direct reports based on scientific experiments and/or large data sets. These are seen as the best sources of information you can use other than conducting your own scientific experiments in academic writing.